Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe, and hit the bell icon for latest updates. I was actually out that night with a friend of mine. A couple of guys came up and grabbed me from behind. A scary quiet fell over the courtroom, thick and heavy like the air was holding its breath. Richard Rawlings, the loud and proud star of Gas Monkey Garage, stood there waiting. In one crushing moment, his whole world would fall apart. 15 long years in jail. No way to get out for 10 years. The punishment hit him like a giant hammer. And the king of cars, who used to be so tough, just fell down. This was only the start of a terrible time that would shock the car world. Richard Rawlings got sentenced. For many years, Richard Rawlings looked like nothing could stop him. He was more than just a guy who loved cars. He was the car guy, the loudest person in any room, the biggest personality on TV. He made quick car deals, big burnouts, and million-dollar sales look super easy, like it was all just a fun game. With his backwards hat, cool rock star look, and always holding a beer, he built Gas Monkey Garage from a tiny shop in Dallas, Texas, into a brand known everywhere in the world. His TV show, Fast and Loud, made him famous. And to his fans, he was the real thing. Honest, rough, and totally from Texas. Richard Rawlings built himself into a legend. He said he could find rare cars that nobody else could, pulling million-dollar old cars from dusty barns and forgotten garages like they were just waiting for him to find them. His word became like the truth in the world of car collecting. If Rawlings said a car was rare, then it was rare. If he said it was real, buyers believed him without asking any questions. This strong trust in him, built by his famous TV show and his bigger-than-life personality, made people less likely to question his deals, even when some smart collectors had doubts. His fame was not just a lucky accident of his business. It was a strong tool that let his bad activities grow without getting caught right away, because people trusted what he showed them more than looking for real proof. But as time went on, the deals started to look too perfect, too clean, too the same every time. Car collectors, especially the older, smarter ones, began to whisper quietly behind closed doors. They wondered how Rawlings could find so many one-of-a-kind cars. They questioned how his cars kept selling for record-breaking prices again and again. Some people thought he just had the best eye for finding cars in the business. Others were not so sure. There were quiet talks, rumors of cars being made to look better than they really were, of papers not matching the cars. A few stories came out about buyers who could not check the real history of what they had bought. But with a national TV show, a fan group that was growing super fast, and lots of money coming in from deals, those quiet whispers were easily lost in the loud noise of the Gas Monkey brand. Richard Rawlings was everywhere. He was not just fixing up cars. He was bringing legends back to life. And he sold that dream better than anyone else. But dreams, when they are built on shaky ground, do not last forever. And in late 2023, that ground would crack open right under him. Cracks in the Gas Monkey story. The downfall of Richard Rawlings did not begin with police lights or a sudden attack. It started quietly with paperwork. In late 2023, the IRS began what was supposed to be a normal check of Gas Monkey Garage. They were just looking for a few small problems in the quarterly money reports. This kind of thing happens all the time in businesses. So there were no alarms, no big news headlines. Just someone checking numbers, expecting to finish up in a few weeks. But those simple questions quickly led to big problems. The IRS workers found business costs that did not match what the company was actually doing in public. Meals were listed like they were car parts. Fancy plane rides were disguised as trips to move cars. Personal cars owned by Rawlings were labeled as cars for sale, but they were never actually sold. And then even more scary, secret money deals in other countries were found that had never been told to the government. At first, it was not clear that anything was wrong. Rawlings's books looked very neat, almost too neat. But special number checkers, who are trained to look for tricks, began to pull at small pieces of information. The deeper they looked, the less it seemed like simple, careless mistakes in bookkeeping, and more like a carefully built trick, a front made to hide something. Then came the most important discovery, a VIN, which is a special ID number on a car. One particular car, a supposed rare fixed-up car that had been sold for over $400,000, caught the attention of the checkers. This VIN did not match any known group for that type of car. In fact, it did not match any company record at all. It was a ghost number, a VIN that should not exist. This kind of fake VIN is a known way used in old car tricks. People followed the trail of this ghost VIN. They traced the sale through a tricky web of fake companies, hidden money moves, and fake paperwork. What had started as a basic small mistake in a tax paper had now shown something far, far bigger. They were no longer just dealing with money lies. They were looking at clear tricks, lies, and maybe even criminal stuff. The IRS quickly sent the serious case to the Department of Justice. That single VIN mistake was not just a one-time error. It was a door. And when people opened it, they found a whole hidden network of lies and illegal stuff behind it. Inside the secret cage. When government people finally raided Gas Monkey Garage, they did not just find the usual tools and old muscle cars you would expect in a car shop. They found a system, a machine carefully built to trick people. Hidden behind locked doors, far away from the bright cameras and the TV crews, was a part of a shop that did not even appear on any building plans. This secret room had no signs and no cameras, and it was always kept locked. Inside this room, which old workers called the cage, was a setup with laser tools, expensive printers, and VIN stamping kits. According to official government papers, this hidden area was the very heart of Richard Rawlings's illegal business. One old worker even said it looked more like a fake-making lab than a car shop. For almost 8 years, Rawlings and a small, trusted group of workers had secretly changed the identities of dozens of cars. Regular, everyday old cars were turned into high-value rare ones. To make these lies believable, fake papers were created. Store receipts, build sheets, even old ownership records. These made-up documents, including ownership papers and old receipts, were made to look so real that even smart car collectors could not tell they were fake. These cars, with their new fake identities and fake paperwork, were then sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars, often to buyers in other countries. This made the crimes cross borders and become government crimes. And the most shocking part was that many of these fake cars were shown right on television on episodes of Fast and Loud. During the trial, parts of Fast and Loud episodes were played in the courtroom as proof for the government lawyers. In these clips, Rawlings could be seen showing off what he called unicorn finds and rare gems with almost no paper history, but amazing looks. The lawyers said that the show was not just for fun. It was a way to sell the fake cars, a smart cover for the tricks. Jury members watched clips of Rawlings telling impossible stories about the cars, like how they were owned by famous people or kept in garages for decades, found against all odds. These cars always showed up at the perfect time and were always for sale soon after filming. Then smart witnesses came forward. Car historians, specialists in VIN numbers, and old factory workers explained how unlikely these finds were. They showed how it would be impossible for one man to stumble upon so many one-of-a-kind cars. They were not just unlikely, they were impossible. With every new person who spoke, the image of Richard Rawlings as a brilliant car flipper began to fall apart. It became clear that he had not just built a garage. He had built a massive lie. What truly sealed the case against Richard Rawlings was not just the fake papers or the changed VINs. It was the powerful stories from inside his own empire. 3 old Gas Monkey Garage workers came forward and each told almost the exact same story, which was very damaging. They talked about a part of the building deep inside the shop, past the brightly lit filming areas, and the public work areas that was not on any floor plan. It had no signs, no cameras, and was always locked. They called it the cage. Inside that room, the real work happened. It was not about fixing old cars, but about giving them new identities, making them new again. There were big VIN stamps, precise welding tools, and a workstation completely used for making fake documents. Ownership papers, old build sheets, and store receipts that looked so real even smart collectors could not tell the difference. One old worker said it looked more like a fake-making lab than a car shop. This was not something Rawlings just stumbled into. It was carefully planned and set up. The government lawyers showed that this secret area had been used for at least 6 years based on inside emails, bills for special equipment, and security camera footage from nearby businesses that showed parts being brought in secretly through side doors. Rawlings was the only person with a master key to this hidden room. While Fast and Loud filmed in one half of the garage, the real illegal business took place in the shadows. What shocked people was not just the operation itself, but how huge it was. Not only were vents being swapped, but complete new identities were being built from scratch. Cars were not just being fixed up, they were being reborn as rare ones. When one worker tried to raise concerns about what was happening, Rawlings supposedly told him, "If you cannot handle this part of the business, you are in the wrong game." That worker quit shortly after. But his story was not heard until the Department of Justice stepped in, and it matched perfectly with the paper trail the lawyers were building against Rawlings. The existence of this secret fake-making lab with its special equipment and Rawlings' only access clearly showed that the tricks were not just a one-time mistake, but a deeply planned and controlled criminal operation at the very core of Gas Monkey Garage. The Shelby GT 500 betrayal. The final crushing blow that sealed the case against Richard Rawlings was not just about fake papers or changed vents. It was about the stories told by people who worked inside his own company. 3 old Gas Monkey Garage workers came forward, each sharing almost the exact same story. And what they showed was very damaging. The turning point came with a single very important sale, a 1967 Shelby GT 500. Rawlings called it his crown jewel, the holy grail of muscle cars. He sold this car to a collector in Europe for a shocking $1.2 million. This sale had been heavily promoted online, talked about in many interviews, and celebrated on episodes of Fast and Loud. Rawlings had hyped it up as the ultimate find, but there was a huge problem. It was not a GT 500. It was not even close. The trick came to light when the European buyer tried to get insurance for the car through a company in Europe. Questions immediately started to pop up. The VIN, the car's unique ID number, failed to pass the real check. The build sheet, a document showing how the car was originally made, looked suspicious. Smart people then traced the car's frame and discovered that the car was in fact a standard 1967 Mustang. It had been fixed up, yes, but it was worth less than $200,000, a tiny part of what the collector paid. The collector, stunned and feeling completely betrayed, began recording video messages. He could not fly in for the trial because he was sick, but his sworn statement was played in full for the jury. In his message, he spoke about how much he admired Rawlings, how he had followed Gas Monkey for years, and how he trusted that the man who built an empire on passion would never trick someone like him. "I believed in Richard," he said, holding up the original purchase agreement. "Now I see he was acting the whole time." That emotional testimony hit the jury hard. But the government lawyers did not stop there. They played recordings of voicemails Rawlings had left for the buyer, promising the car's realness. He used phrases like 100% verified for my private network, and I would never stake my name on a fake. But that is exactly what he had done. The sale of the Shelby solidified the wire fraud charges. It crossed international borders, involved fake documents, and clearly showed that Rawlings intended to trick the buyer. This incident was the moment that completely broke the illusion, not just for the court, but for Rawlings's entire global fan base. The trick was not just a technical one. It was deeply personal. This high-value fraud involving a car he promoted as the Holy Grail showed how far Rawlings was willing to go to exploit the trust he had built with his public image, leading to very serious government charges. The betrayal felt by the collector highlighted how Rawlings' celebrity and seeming passion directly enabled this massive trick, making the fraud feel like a personal attack on his fans. What made Richard Rawlings' crime so powerful and effective was not just how good the fake papers were or how rare the cars seemed to be. It was the TV show Fast and Loud. The show gave him a global stage. Every car flip, every new find, every dollar earned was broadcast with loud, exciting music, fast edits, and his charming personality. The show was not just for fun. It was, in fact, a key part of the evidence against him. Rawlings did not need to convince buyers one by one. He convinced millions of viewers every single week. The lawyers for the government knew this, and they used it powerfully during the trial. Full clips from Fast and Loud were played for the jury. In these clips, Rawlings could be seen bragging about finding rare cars, calling deals miracles, and showing off paperwork as if it were absolute truth. When these clips were compared side by side with what smart witnesses said about fake VINs and false documents, the message became crystal clear. The show itself was a major part of the scam. For example, in one episode, Rawlings held up a build sheet, claiming it came directly from the car's original owner. In court, that very same sheet was proven to be a fake. It had been created using a template found in the secret backroom printer that was taken during the raid on Gas Monkey Garage. His celebrity, which he had carefully built through the show, was not just a side effect of the fraud. It was a weapon that made the entire scheme work. Buyers trusted him because they saw him on TV. They saw the cars before and after their changes. They saw his passion, his energy, and the seemingly amazing deals he made. But what they did not see was the careful manipulation happening behind the scenes, the stage finds, the scripted discoveries, and the cars arranged purely for TV drama. The courtroom quickly realized that Rawlings did not just build fake cars. He built a fake reality. And when you have control over the story, you can sell anything, even a lie. This showed how his fame was used to trick people, turning his public image into a tool for his criminal activities. The show effectively manufactured realness, making viewers believe in a made-up world where his deals were always genuine. Within hours of the guilty decision being read, big car auction houses like Barrett-Jackson and Mecum quickly put out urgent statements. They announced that they would begin internal investigations into any cars that had been previously sold through Gas Monkey Garage. They were not taking any chances, and cars that were once seen as rare treasures, crown jewels of collections, were now under deep suspicion. Private collectors who used to proudly brag about owning a Gas Monkey original suddenly went silent. Some immediately demanded their money back. Others quietly pulled their expensive cars from upcoming auctions, not wanting them to be looked at closely. A few even contacted law enforcement directly, suspecting that they too had been tricked. Insurance companies also quickly got involved. High-value policy holders who owned many expensive cars were flagged. Claims were frozen and cars were called back to be checked again for their true value. One executive at a major insurance company called the scandal the largest classic car realness collapse in the last 25 years. This showed that the fraud was not just about a few cars. It infected the perceived value and trustworthiness of a whole part of the car market. Then came Discovery, the TV network that aired Fast and Loud. They were reportedly blindsided by the government charges and wasted no time in reacting. Within just 72 hours of Rawlings being found guilty, Discovery Channel officially cut all ties with him. All Fast and Loud episodes were quickly removed from streaming platforms. Spin-off shows were canceled and contract talks with other Gas Monkey personalities were stopped indefinitely. Rawlings's merchandise line, which was once a business worth millions of dollars, was pulled from store shelves. Online marketplaces began banning official Gas Monkey items, worried about potential lawsuits from angry buyers. Sponsors ran away. Advertisers vanished. And people who once worked with Rawlings and proudly showed off their ties to him now put out cold business statements, saying they were unaware of any illegal activity. In a matter of just a few days, the empire Richard Rawlings spent decades building was reduced to dust. He was not just canceled, he was erased. The rapid and complete collapse of his empire showed how deeply connected celebrity, trust, and market value are in the world of classic cars. It proved that when a famous person's honesty is shattered, the whole system they are part of can fall apart, showing that fame can lift you up, but it can also bury you. The final reckoning. The trial against Richard Rawlings lasted 3 weeks. The lawyers for the government laid out a mountain of proof. Change VINs, fake papers, smart testimonies, and a clear paper trail that led directly to Rawlings's own signature. The defense tried to paint him as a passionate but careless businessman, someone who was too trusting and not a criminal. But that argument did not stick. After only 6 hours of thinking, The jury came back with their decision. They found him guilty on all 18 counts. Wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy. When the verdict was read aloud, Rawlings did not move. He sat frozen like a statue. But as Judge Oliner Simmons began to speak, everything changed. 15 years in government prison, no possibility of parole for the first 10. And then the silence in the courtroom broke. Rawlings fell face first into the table, his body limp. Gasps echoed through the room. His ex-wife screamed. Dennis Collins, visibly shaken, tried to reach him, but was blocked by U.S. Marshals. Medics stormed in, giving him oxygen and checking his vital signs. It took 7 long minutes before Rawlings finally moved, barely. Pale, drenched in sweat, and unable to walk. He was wheeled out of the courtroom, strapped to a stretcher. There was no mugshot, no defiance, only an oxygen mask on his face, and the unmistakable look of a man who had lost everything. The courtroom that once saw him as a rock star now saw him for what he truly was, a fallen giant. Richard Rawlings once lived like a rock star. He fixed cars, built an empire, and turned grease-stained metal into gold. He had fans, he had fame, he had fire. And for years, he believed that the public image he built was unbreakable. But behind the beer-chugging bravado and the flashy TV editing was something else. Something colder, more calculated. He did not just bend the rules, he rewrote them. He was not a rebel. He was a manipulator.